can't believe how it all turned out. Bring me to life. When the night is falling, I feel the darkness calling, like I'm afraid to love. No one can see me now. When the night is falling, I feel the darkness calling, like I'm afraid to love. No one can see me now. No one can see me
All right, everybody, welcome to the EDL Waveline. This is our, you can call it losers bracket, lower bracket, whatever you want. We are on the third round. So, in the implication of this one series that is happening this week, we are going to finals between Coachless Tyranny and the winner of tonight's series. So, Clutch, I mean, this is the second last week of EDL, man. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I think we'd be done EDL by now if we didn't get delayed like twice. But with that, Clutch, how are you feeling? You know, it's second last week. I mean, things are really starting to come to a close, right? So, I mean, we don't know the future of EL and all of that in general, but how are you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, three teams left, right? One of them is already locked in the Worlds. After tonight, we'll have our second team that is going to Worlds. And then obviously, you know, you have the finals where you play for first, try it to win it all. But yeah, it's been a long season, a little longer than some of us would have liked. But we're finally here, losers final, three teams left. So no matter what, you are top three. But top two only go to Worlds. So obviously, you want to be top two. And you want to win the league. You want to get first place and win the league, get yourself in the Hall of Fame. So a lot of writing on the game tonight because I feel like Coach's Tyranny is hands down the best team in the league. And I mean, these two teams have really turned it on, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do against Coach's Tyranny, either of them. But we still got tonight's match, so going to be an absolute hype one. I think it's going the distance. Some other people don't agree, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's what it is, man. I feel like whenever we get to the very end of the season, it's always like doesn't really feel like it, man. Like the end of the storylines and seeing the teams that go, you know, the distance to go that far. But with that, we're going to take a look at what happened last week. We had some special casters for this series, courtesy of you know, a couple of friends from another league, but we had a 3-2 for G&E Pearl against BDE Lucid. So this was a rather tight series. BDE Lucid actually not having a couple members of their original roster. They didn't have Fritz. And Apathy, I think, also sat out. They had Swag in the jungle, longtime member of BDE, I think also the owner of the org. Longtime member in the comp scene in general, and well-established player, pulled out his famous Ivern, I believe. And then I think they had DT Platinum Heart in the mid lane that series. So I think that was my biggest question mark, right? Going into the series, I was thinking like, well, BDE having a different roster, right? In an elimination match, and this was the series that would take you to that very last round that would in turn take you to finals, right? So Clutch, I feel like this series was this was the series to win for BDE Lucid, right? And Genie pulling ahead in a 3-2, I think, showed a lot in terms of Genie being more consistent, being that stronger roster coming out of it. But, this also showed a few signs of weakness in terms of, BDE not having that original roster. I don't know how much practice they had before as that 5-man unit going into it. So, Clutch, how does this really um, turn some heads and stuff in terms of how Genie came out of the series?
Yeah, I mean, G&E has just really turned it on in the playoffs. The team really only needed the experience. I feel like I think their players, all of them, are individually talented. Where the fact that they can kind of go against any team in the league and kind of pound for pound take them on micro wise, but they were really lacking macro at the beginning of the season. They didn't really know how to play as a team. Um, and I knew if this team got into the playoffs that they'd probably be a force. And we've seen that this team literally has taken down almost every team they've gone against. They almost took down Coach's Tyranny. They're on an absolute tear, and this team just seems unstoppable. I feel like this team is going to be, at least for me, the team to play in the finals against Coach's Tyranny. This team has really just turned it on, and not many teams can stop them. I mean, they're already top 3, and everybody said, this team's going to be a bottom feeder. And, well, they're still here. They're still playing. So I also think BDE is a really good team. They easily were top 4. I feel like BDE, if they were to go against Coach's Tyranny, could maybe take them on. But Genie taking that win is absolutely massive. It just shows to you, they beat the champions from last season. It's not the same roster, but they beat the organization that won last season. And BDE is very, very good in the Silver League scene. So I think it's an absolute massive confidence boost for Genie, and riding it into this week. I mean, it's going to be scary because TD Syndicate's got to have something going. Otherwise, I seriously think Genie is going to absolutely run them over. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I feel like we've talked about this for weeks on end now about how Genie really rose up to the competition and has grown so much as a team. We talked about how they kind of started as bottom of the barrel, like we didn't really know how this team was going to play. I think this definitely is one of my favorite storylines to see. I think Genie for sure really stuck in my mind out of every single season of EDL, honestly, of just, hey, we were just, these new players to the competitive scene. We didn't really know much about it. We're all like silver gold, and we haven't really played together as a 5. And I think getting this far in the first place is so crazy to me. The fact that I've seen so much growth from every single player on that roster is also just crazy to me. Of that's why we have EDL, and I'm glad that we had that kind of team, and they're able to play in that environment, right? So I think that is always, very wholesome. It's a nice thing to see for sure. So with that, this is the EDL playoff bracket. As you can see in the losers bracket round number 2, BDE did fall to Genie, so they are eliminated, not coming back out of that losers bracket. So this week, they are taking on TD Syndicate and G&E Pearl. TD Syndicate being the second seed. They did have that head-to-head win against BDE, knocked them out in that very first round of the winners bracket. And G&E being that 4th seed, getting knocked out in the first round as well to Coachless Tyranny. So I think the biggest thing, for me at least, was, obviously looking at that round 1 of the winners bracket, G&E did take a game off of Coachless Tyranny. I think overall, they really, really handed it to him. Like I said before, G&E really starting out as we don't think this team is going to do well, right? And then we look at them playing against Coachless Tyranny, and you're like, dang, these guys played so much better than we thought they would. And then TD Syndicate actually went against Coachless Tyranny as well in the round 2 of the winners bracket. So whoever wins this series gets to see Coachless Tyranny again. Right, and if you're Coachless Tyranny, you've got to be wondering, like, who do they actually want to go against? Obviously, TD Syndicate did make it further than G&E Pearl in the winners bracket, whoever faced them first. But Clutch, before we look at our predictions, right, if you're Coachless Tyranny, who do you actually want to go against?
If I'm Coach's Tyranny, I want to go against TD Syndicate. Round 1 you played G&E and it was 2-1, and it was really, really close, and that was a best of 3. And, in a best of 5, you would assume that would go 5 games, and you beat TDS 3-1. I feel like Coach's Tyranny would rather play TD Syndicate. I don't think they want to take their chances going against G&E, who have just absolutely turned it on. And I mean, I feel like, in my opinion, G&E is the only team that can take down Coach's Tyranny at this point. I think TD Syndicate, they've got to show me something special against Genie and win if they want me to consider them in the finals. But I feel like if you are Coach's Tyranny, you say, hey, let's just beat the team that we beat in 4 games. They looked pretty solid in all of them. And they kind of ran them over in game 3 and 4. Game 2, they're, obviously because of the FF and all that, they're pretty tilted and weren't able to win. But I feel like Coach's Tyranny would way rather play TD Syndicate than Genie because, again, Genie has just been absolutely popping off recently.
Yeah, I mean, look at G&E's track record so far in this playoff bracket, right? Losing to Coachless Tyranny, dropping into that losers bracket, taking that 2-0 against TDS Chocolate. But if you remember, TDS Chocolate was basically just Revolution, and Revolution coming into the playoffs before all the comp rulings and stuff, they were 5-1, I think, in series. I think overall, Revolution, I would have totally said that Rev or TDS Chocolate, right, that roster was going to be Genie Pearl. But the fact that, Wingman was on that team and he talked to us after that series and it's like, yeah, Genie is completely different than when we first went against them at the beginning of the season, right? So I think even then, it's just that growth story, right? Like they are scaling so hard, and I don't know where they'll be at for this specific series tonight, right? So G&E taking that 2-0 against TDS Chocolate, then taking a 3-2 against the BDE Lucid. I think this series, because it was a lot closer than their other series beforehand, I think this draws a few more question marks as to, well, G&E, went against a bunch of like veterans and some really, really talented players for sure on BDE. And BDE also was a really strong team despite I think they ended with like a 4-3 record or something like that, right? So on paper, BDE I think was a lot better than they looked, especially the way that they played and all of that other stuff they showed throughout the season. But I think this also adds a lot of merit to G&E's win. So going into this week against TD Syndicate, I feel like, beforehand, especially if you asked me this question, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, TD Syndicate would just like wash G&E. Part of it was also TD Syndicate had a different top laner. I think they had a different, support. I can't remember exactly which role he swapped in terms of the bottom half of the map. But regardless, I think this is that series that, for storyline wise, G&E Pearl really, really wants to win. So, with that, Matt Pizza was supposed to be here, so he said he wouldn't be here, but it's what it is. So here are the round of 3 predictions. We have Matt Pizza, who said a 3-1 for G&E. Clutch and I agreed on a 3-2 for G&E Pearl. So, Clutch, for your prediction here, right? Because you said that Coachless Tyranny would want to go against TD Syndicate, right? But from this series, why do you think that they wouldn't get to go against TD Syndicate, and with your prediction, they'd have to go against G&E?
Yeah, G&E has been on fire. I mean, this team has absolutely just been crushing everyone they've gone up against. I guess besides BDE, because I mean that was really close, but they still ended up taking the win. The team now has experience, and these rookies coming in, it's giving me EG vibes where this team goes into the losers bracket, they catch fire, and nobody can stop them. They just start running over every single team. And I'm really hyped for G&E. They've got a lot of players who are talented micro-wise, and they pull off these highlight reel plays, and they're a very flashy team. They like to fight. They'll take it to you. And I mean, where their macro could potentially be lacking, they'll make up for it in their micro play. Like this team will come at you, and they'll come at you fast. That sounds really bad. I was going to say they come at you hard, but not good at all. This team's really, really good. Now, I've gotten word that we're about to see Jesus Juice play for TD Syndicate in game 1.
I saw that too.
And this guy is an absolute, he can literally carry teams through the grave. He's only playing game 1 from what I know, and then Super Square will be playing. So do need to keep that in mind. Again, TD Syndicate's going to lose 2 bans, but Jesus Juice is an absolute beast. If this guy's dominating Gold League, I am really scared for what he's going to do in Silver. Now, granted, he's not playing with the same level of teammates, right? His teammates are going to be a little bit worse. I mean, that's just how it is, gold versus silver. But it's this game one's going to be tough for Genie. If Genie can beat TD Syndicate with Jesus Juice, I think they can beat TD Syndicate in general because this is no shade to Super Square. I think Super Square is a really good jungler, top 3 in the league. But if Jesus Juice played in silver, he'd be the best. And I think everyone can agree with that Jesus Juice would probably be the best jungler in silver. The good news for Genie is they have Sethi, who this guy is basically came out of nowhere and rose to the top. I mean, this guy is an absolute beast in the jungle. And Jesus Juice versus Sethi is probably the best the league has to offer in the jungle, I feel like, at least in my mind. Like, this is going to be a hype jungle matchup, even if it's just for one game. Both these junglers carry junglers. If they get ahead, they will snowball their lead and take over the game. And having those two explosive junglers for on the Rift, it's going to be a treat to watch. And we usually don't get to see this kind of stuff where you got someone coming down from gold playing in silver that's really good, and then you get like one of the best, if not the best, in silver. So like I feel like this is kind of like the best gold jungler versus the best, quote unquote silver jungler. I'm pretty sure he's gold now. So it'll be a hype matchup. I'm excited for that. But reason why I said 3-2 Genie is I feel like at the end of the day, the experience Genie has been able to gain in these playoffs is just going to put them over the edge of TD Syndicate because TD Syndicate has swapped up the roster a little bit. They're still a very solid team, top 3, but I think Genie with the momentum they're riding, they're going to take down TD Syndicate.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you were saying before, just the raw talent that Genie has, and looking at TD Syndicate's roster too. I mean, one person that we pointed out a lot over the season and from the beginning was Agent C6, right? I remember when we first watched him, and I was like, "There's no way this guy is like actually new to the competitive scene, right?" Like, I was really really impressed just the way they positioned, the way they played in team fights and all that kind of stuff. That's not to throw any shade at the rest of TD Syndicates, but I think overall, I don't remember. Did we say it before when we saw them go against each other?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the matchup for me to watch is definitely that bot lane. G&E Pearl's bot lane between Ominous and HViz, I think. Very strong 2v2 for sure. But the difference between them and Agent C6, and I think Rhymes, I'm not sure if Rhymes is playing, but I think they are. But between those two, I think, right, that becomes a really volatile matchup. But what is your matchup to watch between these two teams?
I mean, I think without Jesus Juice, I think the matchup to watch is going to be the jungle. I feel like jungle and bot lane are the closest matchups in the series. I feel like they could go either way. I feel like mid is heavily favored to the side of Genie. I think top is, kind of even, but I feel like mid is like very, very heavily favored to the side of Genie. Gabe Recall is, he didn't make the all-star team, I believe, but he really has turned it on in the playoffs and looked like one of the best mids in the league. And if it's going to be Sethi up against Super Square, that's a really hype matchup too, because both these junglers, again, they can carry, and especially Super Square, because like jungle is the focus for the side of TD Syndicate. Yes, they have a very strong bot lane, like you said, and I think Rhymes and Agent C6 are one of the best bot lanes in the league. But I feel like jungle, like at least TD Syndicate, heavily rely on their jungler. If their jungler gets behind, I feel like they kind of fall apart. Whereas if their jungler gets behind, they have supporting pieces to be able to, pick up the slack. I feel like TD Syndicate doesn't have that. Hence why, again, I said I think Genie would win. I think Genie just is a better team across the board. But that doesn't mean they're going to be able to sweep this team. TD Syndicate's too damn good to get swept, and it's going to be a banger match. But yeah, jungle, I'd say, is the matchup to watch. Even in game one, Jesus Juice versus Sethi. I'm hyped because nobody knew Jesus Juice was going to be coming in, but now that he is, we get to see, quote unquote EGL MVP, but he didn't make it to the finals, so no MVP. But this guy was smurfing, and we get to see him again, which is always a treat to cast because this guy is so damn good.
Yeah, for sure. Jesus Juice really coming in clutch for them. Yeah, like you said, I really love watching the guy play. I don't know how this guy hasn't actually climbed out of gold yet at this point, with just so much skill he's shown across the multiple seasons he's played in EL for sure. So with that, hopefully we will see you guys in just about 10 minutes. We're going to be watching TD Syndicate take on Genie Pearl in a best of 5 banger. Clutch, any closing thoughts before we go?
No, I am super excited for this series, and I think we're in for a really good one. I don't know if this is going to be, like last week, an absolute banger. It could go 5. I said 5 to be safe, but we'll see. Everyone's on the side of G&E, and everyone's, rooting for the underdog, and yeah, it's going to be a banger match, and can't wait to see it happen.
Yep, for sure. So, again, we'll see you guys in just a couple of minutes here. TD Syndicate taking on G&E Pearl, and hopefully we'll see you guys there.